Hi folks, and welcome to another episode of Careers and Coffee. I'm absolutely thrilled to be welcoming Clare Hutchinson from the Careers and Enterprise company. So Clare is the Director of Network, and she's going to be talking to us today a little bit more about how do you build a network of employers to be able to support young people around preparing and inspiring them for the world of work. So let's bring on Clare to talk to us a little bit more. Clare, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks for having me, Jordan.
It's an absolute pleasure. We've known each other for a few years. I know about all of the extraordinary work that you do at the Careers and Enterprise company. I've got lots of questions for you, but the first one, have you got coffee or a beverage to hand?
I have. I've got water.
Coffee, Careers and Coffee. Well, to be fair,
I don't drink coffee after 8 o'clock in the morning.
Really? Blimey.
Yeah.
I'm still sort of wondering who I am at that time. So, right, let's kick off. So, first and foremost, tell me about you and your role at the Careers and Enterprise company.
Okay, so as you said, I'm Director of Network, which is one of those titles that doesn't mean a lot to most people. But our network is this incredible network of 4,000 schools and colleges that work to improve careers education for their young people. And we support them with that. So what we're here to do is to really transform, dare I say, revolutionise the careers education that young people get and move it on in a way that it hasn't really moved on for many, many years.
That sounds fantastic.
Sorry.
No, carry on.
Yeah, well, day to day, it's kind of an operations role, and operations often means troubleshooting. So I spend quite a lot of time dealing with problems. But the fun bit of my job is getting out there and meeting people and finding out what they're doing and what's working well, and taking those examples and sharing them with other people. And the amazing team of 350 people out there that are working directly with schools, just every day supporting them in how they can do better and better careers.
Blimey, that sounds full on. Definitely no sort of time to be twiddling your thumbs on that one. But in terms of sort of a day, what does a typical day look like? Because I'm sure it would have changed rapidly from what it looked like, say, last January to what it looks like now.
Absolutely. I mean, the content's fairly similar. So I would ordinarily, if we had the freedom to move around, I'd spend a couple of days in our office in London, catching up with colleagues, having meetings with people. But then the rest of the week, I'd be out and about. I might be in schools. I might be at conferences, speaking, meeting colleagues, and hearing about the great work that's going on. All of that's still happening, but I'm doing it in my dining room. So opportunities like this to use all the great tech that's out there means that I'm still speaking at conferences and meeting a couple of hundred people here and there, or having one-to-one conversations. But I'm not having the fun of traveling the country.
At least there's not too many early starts. That's one thing, like 6 a.m. on the train. That's I definitely don't miss any of those. But let's rewind the clocks a little bit back to when Clare was at school. What was school like for you? What was careers advice like for you? And has it improved? Has careers advice improved?
I hope so. So I'm fortunate. I went to a really nice school. It's a long time ago now, I have to admit, but I went to a great school that had fantastic teachers, really inspiring lessons, loads and loads of extracurricular activities, but they didn't do careers. So we didn't ever meet employers, we didn't do work experience, we didn't do mock interviews, we didn't do a careers fair. So literally the only career support that we got was we did half a day of psychometric testing, which was weird and wonderful. And then afterwards we had a 20-minute conversation with a history teacher who kind of read off a sheet and said, you could be one of these 5 things. And what I have to say, the psychometric testing was incredible. And I'm really all for people doing psychometrics, because the report that I got, a 10-page report, is still relevant today. I've still got it, because what it talks about is my preferences and the things that I might be good at. And that's so true. But trying to then say, and therefore you'd be good at these 5 jobs, was just a step too far. So that meant that I made some really either odd choices or no choices, because I didn't know what I was doing. And it took me ages to work out what I really wanted to do. And so I think I have to say careers has really come on in leaps and bounds since then. I know there will still be a few young people that have a quite sad experience like that, but the vast majority aren't. They're having much more support and much more engagement with employers.
Well, I can definitely vouch for that. Yeah, if I'm a young person, well, I still like to think I am. But if I'm at school, what sort of careers advice should I be expecting from my careers leads? Should I be expecting to meet different employers? Yeah, what should I be getting at school?
I honestly think that good career support is a right for young people. You go to school expecting to have a good education. You expect to come out numerate and literate, but somehow young people don't have this expectation that people will prepare them for the world of work, and that's what I want them to have, and certainly the direction of travel in the future. I think that you should expect to have a careers program that spans your entire school education, certainly from year 7 right up to year 13. It should be the thread that runs through everything you do at school, because with the best will in the world, you study these subjects, you take exams, schools are targeted on the exams they take, but actually that period of secondary education is 7 years. And yet most of us work for 40 plus years. So the amount of effort and prep that should go into that planning for your career should be all encompassing as you go through school. So I would like to see young people even in primary school, but definitely from year 7 in secondary school, having this progressive careers program that means you constantly have information, that you constantly meet employers, that you have a tailored plan so that you start to work out the things that you're interested in or that you're not interested in, your likes and dislikes, how that aligns with your skills and your abilities. So all those points at which you make choices, be that about subjects or where you go next, and in the long term about careers, those choices start to become slightly easier. And I think there's a misnomer that we're asking people to fix on a career when they're 12 and stick with it forever. And that's not what I think this is about. It's about curiosity and maintaining that interest and curiosity in jobs, so that whatever happens to you in life, you're always able to pivot if you need to research when you need to, and identify what's going to suit you.
Yeah, stellar advice. Do you think we talk enough about, I suppose, sort of alternative pathways and self-employment, enterprise, or do you think we keep sort of pushing down the route of FE, HE a lot of the time?
I think you're right that I don't think we talk about the alternative pathways. And even in the more traditional pathways, I think the focus is very, very narrow. And we did research years ago. I mean, it's still valid, but into the key influences in a young person's life are usually parents and teachers. And with the greatest respect, unless you're a professional, either as a parent or teacher, your knowledge is quite limited. So you're probably giving quite narrow advice on opportunities out there. And that will often therefore mean if you have a parent who went to university, they'll suggest that's the route you take. If you have a parent that works in a particular industry, they're more likely to talk about that or similar industries. So we're narrowing that focus all the time. And I think having that broad range of appreciation of different routes and pathways and different times you can sort of step on and off, I think is important. And certainly, I mean, you hear, don't you, that in times of recession, it's the entrepreneurs that kind of come out of the woodwork and they bring the economy back round, and there's some real creativity that often comes out of recession. And I think this is the time that we need to make sure young people, with everything that's going on in the world with COVID and with Brexit, recognise that there are opportunities for them to be self-starters and entrepreneurial.
Agreed. Couldn't agree more on that one. And those who are working in this sector around sort of careers, employability, etc., I think a lot of the time we're so focused on what other folks are doing with their careers, we often don't take a time to reflect on our own. Is that the same for yourself? Do you take time to sort of reflect on your own career and sort of career journey?
I do, and probably because I got some really good advice years ago, and somebody told me that most people spend more time planning their annual fortnight holiday than they do their career, and that phrase always stuck with me. And I thought, yeah, actually, so I do reflect quite a bit. I'm not saying I've got this incredible careers plan where I know where I'm going to be every year or every 2 years or every 5 years, but I certainly think quite often about what I'm enjoying about things, what I have enjoyed, where I might want to move in the future, what skill set I've got or would like to develop. So I do spend some time thinking about it, but I could always do more.
I've never seen it in that sort of way around sort of planning your holiday. I mean, I've not thought about holidays in a long time.
Well, who has? Apart from
I
dreaming.
dreaming about them now, but yeah, I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it. Just in terms of, I suppose, sort of business support as well. We have all sorts of different folks who watch this. If you are an employer and you're thinking, right, actually, I want to give back, I want to be able to support young people, prepare and inspire them for the world of work, how should they be going about that?
I think there's massive willingness for employers to engage in education. It's incredible the amount of time and support they give, and if there are employers watching, just a huge thank you for doing that. I think the thing is, it's about relevance. If you imagine that you were marketing a product or a service, you always think about your target market, and you think about how is my target market going to understand this and want to and buy it or engage in it in some way. And it's the same when employers are talking to young people. You have to make sure that you're talking at the right level. Too often I've seen employers trying to engage 14-year-olds, and they're talking about things in a language that a young person doesn't understand, so they very, very quickly disengage. And the problem there is they can write off a whole industry because of that one experience of talking to somebody who couldn't quite put it into the words that would be understandable by that age group. There's loads of support out there and guidance, and the school you're going to speak to, you can just say, how should I pitch things with this particular cohort of young people? I think that's really critical. And I think the other thing is, I honestly think it's an employer's responsibility to bring their company, their sector, and the jobs within it to life. There should be no expectation that even if you're a household name, that a young person would know, or even a teacher or a parent would know what you do and what that means. So it's about kind of it's bringing it to life, basically. And I've got a friend who she would never say to somebody, what's your job? She always phrases the question. I always think it's a bit like the Queen. She always says, what do you do all day? Because she's absolutely fascinated by what does your day look like? So a bit like you asked me before, because job titles, if I said director of network, you might be thinking networks, IT. Well, I'm, as we know, Jordan, the least technical person ever. And so it doesn't say anything. So instead, by asking, what do you do all day? I think you really get more to the heart of understanding a role in an industry and sector. And so I think employers need to approach it in that same way, that they're somehow kind of opening this mysterious box of what actually happens here.
I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it, because I remember going on work experience. You turn up to these huge fancy offices, you think, what are those people? What are they doing there all day? They're spending 8 hours every single day. What are you up to? And I think it's not until you have those encounters and you chat with someone, you think, okay, wow. And not every day is the same. But I wanted to sort of touch on some of the work you've done with schools. What have been some of the memorable moments that you've been working with students and young people, that you've sat in a classroom, you've done something, you thought, wow, that was brilliant? What have been some of those moments for you?
I think embedding careers in the curriculum is the most important thing. I'd like to get to a point where people don't talk about careers as an extra thing. It's just the thread. It's talked about every day. So it's not an extra lesson. It's not a drop down day. It's not part of PSHE. So some of the standout things for me have got to be, if I think back to when I was more directly engaging with schools and not doing my traveling the country role, but having 30 children take over the running of a hotel for the day, that was both terrifying and incredible, knowing that they had somebody behind them on their shoulder, but they were doing maintenance, they were running reception, they were running the kitchen, doing the front of house, the cleaning. It was unbelievable. That was great, but it was all the pre-work and the post-work that made it even more meaningful for those young people. And I think my other favourite has got to be a group of, there were 30 year 9 maths students who really were struggling with certain parts of the curriculum. And we took them, and we had to get approval for this, took them to a brewery for the day. And they spent having seen how beer was made and the whole process, and they spent the whole day doing maths to work out how they costed that bottle of beer in the end. And because they were doing it in such a contextual way, they could visualize it, they got it, and they'll always be able to mentally refer back to that when they're doing a percentage or ratios or measures or whatever. And if they're struggling, they can probably picture what they were doing and how they did it, which for those learners that learn in that more sort of kinesthetic way is the best way of doing it. So I've got loads of examples like that of things that we've done where I know they've made a massive difference. But I think one of my favourites got to be a young lad in a school. Again, he was about year 9, and he'd done a piece of work, a project, a kind of work-related learning project with an employer. So it was somewhere between work experience and this kind of every week, an hour for every week for 8 weeks. And he'd been in credit control. And he'd really understood the fact that it didn't matter how good your business was and how many clients you had. If they don't pay you, then you've got a problem. And that was his summing up to the chief executive of the importance of credit control. And I think it's when you realise that they've absolutely got that important bit of how that operates, it's just such a heartwarming moment.
Agreed. I think that sounds fantastic. And we've just got a question. So, what are yours and the CEC's future ambitions for supporting young people? Ooh.
Well, also I think we would say.
Oh, I think Claire might have dropped out there. I think while she's waiting, or while she's coming back to us on that one, I think in terms of the, just to sort of sum up in terms of Careers and Enterprise Company and some of the points that Claire had made there, Careers and Enterprise Company, one of the key programs they've got is the Enterprise Adviser Network, and we've talked about that very briefly there, and what it means to have a network of employers supporting young people. So Enterprise Advisors, they are volunteers from business who are linked on an individual basis with schools and colleges up and down the UK to support with careers programs to make sure schools are hitting the Gatsby Benchmarks. So thinking about labour markets, to think about linking curriculum learning with careers, so that students in English, maths and science and all manner of different subjects are thinking about, okay, well, I'm learning about this right now, but how do I apply this to when I'm at college or I'm at university or I'm out in the world of work? So it's looking at those sorts of areas as well, and obviously supporting on personal guidance, etc. They're some of the key areas that an enterprise advisor tend to support with. And I know that whenever Claire does join us, touch wood, she can refer you on to the Careers and Enterprise Company website, and of course, different LEP areas and local authorities who have their own enterprise advisor networks, such as us here at New Anglia. And I know that Claire would also touch on the role of cornerstone employers supporting young people. We've got quite a cohort locally across New Anglia, everyone from Haven Power right through to many others, supporting a whole plethora of different activities across the county. Hopefully Claire can join us shortly. I think she's having trouble getting back in. But just moving on to cornerstone employers there. Again, there's lots of information on the website, so you'll be able to check that out and obviously have a look below. Hopefully Claire should be joining us, if you bear with us for a second. No, I don't think she is. I think we might have to end it on that one, folks. But hopefully you got as much information as you could from Claire, and I'm sure we can either do another video with Claire and she'll be able to join us, if not either today or another time. But huge thank you for tuning to Careers and Coffee today. Tune in for next Tuesday, so 12:30 to 1. Again, some more amazing guests, and we look forward to seeing you. Thanks.